So today I'm out and about and we're finally going to be testing the DJI Action 2 for FPV. Now, if you've seen my other videos, I've walked you guys through what I think about it as an action camera. I have spoken about it in FPV on the live streams. However, today is going to be talking about how this camera performs specifically for FPV and ignoring all of the other aspects. Now, what we're going to do first of all is take it for a fly, get some footage, and then we're going to jump back to the studio and give you my thoughts on how you could integrate this camera into your workflow with FPV, what the good bits are, what the bad bits are, and what you need to take into account before you consider buying it. So we're just currently offloading the footage. Now this is 3 packs worth and I didn't look at the file sizes. I'll confirm that. I'll try and put that up on the screen after. I'm just converting it down now to the SD card and so far it's been 3 minutes and 14 seconds. After that flight, the last one, which is the 3rd flight, we had about 20% battery left. So I got 3 flights out of the camera in use so far. We're going to have to give it a little bit of time now to top up and transfer this data over. Okay, so it's just finished and it finished at 15:50. Now this is about 10 seconds behind because I'd already started the transfer, so about 16 minutes. Now, just interestingly, what I want to have a look at is what the battery is charged to now. Because okay, so I started that with a battery on 20% and now it is at 89. So whilst it is doing the transfer, it is charging the battery up on the device as well. Okay, last pack. Let's see how it goes. So before I jump back to the studio and talk about all this a bit more, I just thought I'd give you some of my observations whilst it's in my head. All very interesting. I haven't seen the footage yet, so I don't know what it looks like. Form factor and fit is great. That glass on the front really does worry me though. Interesting that those 3 flights did take 15 minutes or so to transfer, but it did charge the battery whilst doing so, back up to 89%. I do worry about the cycling factor on that as well, and how long that battery would last while cycling that much and that fast. But no overheating, no problems in flight that I can see. We'll have to go and look at the footage and go from there. So just before we jump over and give you my thoughts and talk about some of the other things, I just want to talk about mounting this camera and what options are available for recording as well. Now, one of the big interesting points of this camera has been this magnetic mounting system that DJI have introduced. So the way it works, you simply have the camera and it will lock onto the mounting device that DJI have provided. So for instance, we've got the bottom screen module. It just locks in like that. Or you alternatively have this GoPro style mount available as well, which as you can see, just goes near it and it locks in place. And then you've got these little latches on either side that hold the camera on. Now, I will say it is absolutely solid when it is in place. However, I would personally not trust this with the camera on an FPV quad, and that is why I 3D printed up this TPU mount. Now, there are a few reasons for that. The first is to offer some extra protection, because at the end of the day, even when the camera is on the mount like this, and I could then put that on the quad like that, there is no protection for the camera itself. It's going to get you up and running, but it certainly isn't something I am personally comfortable flying with. And that's why I went down the road of printing this TPU mount. Now, this is one of the basic ones that I found on Thingiverse. It does a good job, actually. It just splits in half in the middle. You then simply place the camera inside, and then it holds it in place with the bracket and locks it in place as well. Now, this one doesn't have any protection for the back screen, and obviously there's not really any additional protection for the front glass, but it does add a little bit around the sides. I had no issues with this one overheating either. For me personally, whilst this magnetic mount is quite impressive in the sense of it's quite cool the way it works, it will simply lock in place, it isn't something I would feel comfortable with strapping onto something and in being sure that something isn't going to go wrong, because all it's going to take is one of these latches to come loose and then you could lose the module. But it is worth me saying that the magnet on this is extremely strong. You know, if I put it there, you can see it clamps straight in. It will drag the camera straight in as well. Now, I don't really conceive there being a situation where someone's going to want to mount it on a quad with this module attached. It's just not really ideal in any shape or form, simply because of the form factor, because even if you've got it that, the size and weight, it just makes it not worth doing. But if you had to get yourself up and running, you could use this, but personally, I would go with the TPU bracket. Now, just to quickly show you the stability options that are available with this camera depending on the frame rates. Now, as I said earlier, we were in 4K 16:9 and we were 60 frames a second. With that, we have the option of rock steady being on or off, and rock steady is available in all of the resolutions all the way up to 120 frames a second. However, if you do drop down to 2.7K and 60 frames a second, you then also get the option of the horizon steady feature. And that is the one that keeps the horizon straight and level no matter what you do with the camera. Now, I haven't really tested this for FPV yet. I have only used rock steady. And as you can see from the footage, you've seen the output that you get from that. But horizon steady may be interesting for people who want to have a more gimbal-like experience. I'm going to try that separately in another video later on to show you guys the kind of performance that you can get from it. But really, it's just worth understanding that you get rock steady in everything and horizon steady in up to 2.7K 60. Okay, so to talk about the Action 2 from an FPV point of view, there is a hell of a lot to like here from the size, weight and form factor side of things. There is no question this style of camera suits FPV very well. It's lightweight, it's not too large, and it fits extremely well on quads, planes and wings. Whilst that side of things is good though, I do have some concerns over the materials used. Yes, the outside case of the camera is made of aluminium, but that also brings some issues as well, and I do have some concerns in a good crash that you're going to crack not only the front glass, but the back screen as well. The front glass is extremely exposed, and that back screen goes right to the edges, so any ding on the wrong place, and it's going to split that in a heartbeat. Some of this can be helped and improved by using a good case, and you can even have one that covered the back screen. However, that front glass remains exposed and you can't replace it should it get damaged. It means it's got to go back to DJI. From an image quality point of view, again, there is a lot to like here. It is very, very good. It's not quite, in my opinion, as good as the GoPro Hero 10, but it is close enough for most people. And the factor of what you're saving on size and weight for the loss in image quality is so small, it's almost not worth considering. The stabilization, which is rock steady, is also very good, but it isn't perfect. And again, it's not as good as the GoPro offering. It also does not record gyro data to the storage, which means you only have that rock steady stabilization. There is no option for post-processing stabilization like you can on the GoPro as well. There are times in flips and rolls it doesn't quite behave as you would like to see it, and you can see the odd jerk, but overall it does a decent job. For wing users, you also have that horizon steady feature as well, which you may find interesting. However, do take into account that it does limit your record rates compared to rock steady, which works in all of them. Overall, from an image quality and stabilization, I think it's a good compromise. Yes, the GoPro is better, but this does get close. And considering the size and weight, I think most people will be more than happy. Now, whilst that's the positives, there are also negatives, and we'll address the elephant in the room first of all, and that is overheating. Well, the reality is, from a FPV quad point of view, it's not a problem. This will not overheat in general FPV use as long as you've got a good case. If you're using it with the DJI magnetic mount, which I strongly advise you don't, it will be fine. However, if you're using it with something like a TPU case like this, in my tests, it was okay as well. I do think there will be better case designs come with more airflow, and that will help. But for the most part, in FPV, overheating was not a problem for me. Whilst that is the case for quad users, wing users will need to be a bit careful, and if you're going to bury it in the foam, you're going to need to make sure that there is plenty of airflow. Air hitting the glass alone isn't enough, and it does need air moving around the whole outside case to help keep the device cool, so do take that into account when you are designing your model. Now, whilst heat isn't going to be a problem, one thing that is battery life, because this camera's internal battery is only going to give you about 20 minutes of use at 4K. That is quite a heavily limiting factor, and then once it's flat, you've then got to take it off, put it on charge on here, and then wait for it to charge up. Now, whilst today we don't have any proper external powering options, it is going to come, and you can even add your own 5-volt supply to the bottom of this via the connector, because I've pinned it out already and found which pins are the inputs. This camera will take 5-volt at about 700 milliamp, and that will allow you to charge the camera when it's not recording, but it will maintain the battery when it is recording in flight as well. So that will solve the battery power option in the future. Here and now, we don't have any cases that do come with this, but it won't be long before you do see them come. The likes of Tilta have already announced a bracket with a USB-C input, and I'm pretty sure we'll see some TPU cases come in with a little board in the bottom to charge as well. It's just a matter of time, but you can do it yourself if you want to, and I am going to try and design my own board for this, and I will put that on the community page once I've had a chance to get it done. So for the most part, whilst power is an issue today, it is one we can solve in FPV. So whilst overheating and power are fine, there is one last thing you do need to take into account, and that is the recording times on the built-in storage, but not just the recording times, the amount of time it takes to get that footage off. This camera has 32 gigs of built-in memory. However, you only actually get access to about 22.4 gigs of that for your own use. I've spent some time looking at all of the recording rates on this, and there are decent numbers available, especially in 1080p. However, if you're recording in 1440, for instance, in 30p, you can get just over 55 minutes, and in 60p, you can get around half an hour. In 4K, you get around 35-40 minutes in 30, or 20 minutes in 60 frames a second. So how long you get will be heavily dependent on what resolution you intend to record at. Now, whilst you may think, well, 1440-30 gives me 56 minutes and I'm good, you do need to take into account how long it takes to get that footage off the camera onto the module, for instance. In my tests, transferring 10 gigs of data took about 14 minutes to transfer it from the internal memory to a SanDisk Extreme U3 card. For a full internal memory of over 20 gig, it was good 25-30 minutes. In fact, I didn't timer it because it was taking so long, I just walked off. So really, the internal storage limitation is all going to be down to how you record and how long you want to record for. If you're someone that's happy with 1440-30, then you've got over 50 minutes. And if you can power the camera externally, you're going to be all good. But if you're then going to want to film for the full day, you're again going to be coming up against that limitation. Really, this is going to be down to what your personal workflow is like and what you're willing to take as a limitation versus the benefit of having the small camera like this. So in the end, should you consider buying the Action 2 for FPV? Well, the reality is yes, you should absolutely consider it, but you just need to weigh up the plus and downsides. As I've already said, this camera has a lot of positives going for it. Size, shape, weight, great image quality, decent stabilization. However, there are concerns and there are downsides. That front glass and back screen is extremely exposed, and how well will they survive a crash, even in a good frame? Even if you protect the back, that front glass is always exposed because you need to be able to see from it, and you cannot replace it yourself at this time, so you are going to need to be careful. Furthermore, you then have to weigh up the power issues and the recording issues, in the sense of power can be solved because we know how to power the camera. We've just got to wait for some cases and boards to come out to allow us to do that. But you still have those limitations around recording. And what you have to decide for yourself is, does the onboard storage being 22.5 gigs limit you? And are you willing to put up with the transfer times to the module? If you're someone that only flies for 35-40 minutes, you'll probably be fine as long as you can actually power the camera externally or charge it between uses. However, if you're not someone who does that and you're out filming for 4 or 5 hours, then you could find the workflow on this camera a pain point. It is going to be down to how you choose to use it. Some people may find they want 2 or 3 of them and that works better. Some will find they won't. Here and now, the limitations are power and recording time for FPV, because until we get those brackets, you are still going to be limited to about 20 minutes. So you're going to get 3 flights out of it at best before having to wait 35 or 40 minutes for it to charge. But again, that will go away once we get the power options in the future. Hopefully the information you've seen in this has been helpful to you, and please do let me know what you think in the comment section of this video. Now that's it from me. If you'd like to support the channel, please do consider hitting the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the little bell next to it as well. If you'd like to support us further, there are links to Patreon as well as Buy Me a Coffee, and if you'd like to help us keep making independent reviews like this, please do check them out, because it is only through your support are we able to do this. Finally, there is a link to my Discord server in the description of this video as well, and if you'd like to check that out, come over, say hi, please do let me know and hop over and I'll try and answer any questions you have there too. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay safe and I will speak to you guys again soon.